And then they came for the My Pillow guy. Golly, I do think that this is finally getting out of hand. I don't know why. What is it about the My Pillow guy that feels like they've crossed a line? I guess because he just feels so... I don't want to be mean and say he's unserious, but he's a lighthearted guy. I mean, sure, you might not like that he was a Trump supporter, but I mean, what's there to hate about him? He makes pillows. He doesn't hurt people. And yet the FBI swarms him at the Hardys. They block him in. They pull one car up behind him. They pull another car in front of him, and then another on his side, and block him in on three sides, and then he's got the building on the other end, and they got out, guns drawn. And what do? They steal his phone. They steal a past middle-aged, probably, in the 60s. I'm sure he colors his hair. Just take his phone, which they've been doing to a lot of Trump supporters, Congress people, and other folks lately. And my guess is that this is going to result in some kind of October surprise. I don't know why they would be doing all of this stuff in the lead up to the election, unless maybe it's just to chill support for, Trump and Republicans. Maybe that's what it's about. They're trying to go after some of these key people, take them out of the running so that they can't participate in the midterms, and then kind of, let things go after that and say, oh, gee, sorry, we had to seize your phones, but you know what? We didn't find any, let's say, objectionable content, which the feds have a penchant of planting on people's devices. So here, you can have your phone back, and don't worry, we're, case closed. Or are they really trying to build some big investigation in which they claim that there was a conspiracy amongst Trump supporters to hack our election or overthrow the results of the election, I think is the term they use now. Hack our election was a 2016 term. Because remember, Mike Lindell, he had nothing to do with January 6th. So this isn't. I don't think this can possibly be about January the 6th. He wasn't there. I don't remember Mike Lindell saying anything publicly, on January the 6th. What he was involved with heavily was in trying to make the case to Trump and to other people that the 2020 election was fortified, let's say, in a very particular manner. At the time, I was critical of Mike Lindell's explanation of the election, not necessarily in principle, but just like his specifics. I thought that things worked out a little differently. I would read the Time magazine, the infamous Time magazine article. I think that's a pretty good explanation of what happened in the 2020 election. You all should know which article I'm referring to. It's the one on election fortification. That's their term, so I can use that. I'm not going to say that anything else, perhaps negative, was done to the election. And it seems as though Mike Lindell is being investigated, for that. I mean, that's all we can think of, because this comes at the same time when they're going after a bunch of other Trump people. According to Tucker Carlson, it was like 35 Trump supporters were raided in various, there's different degrees that term can refer to. There's a raid where they, kick your door down, point, an AR in your face and, yank your teenage boy out of the shower and make him stand cold and naked in the living room while they ransack your house and, fill up a bunch of boxes. And then there's the raid where they essentially imprison or detain you at a Hardee's and steal your cell phone. Both very, very scary, but they are, differences in degree. Then Tucker, and I don't mean to keep referencing Tucker Carlson, but I mean, he's one of the few, big media, figures that is covering this. And he had on, I think, exclusively this woman from New Jersey who was just a random Trump supporter, who was not, it's not like she was some big donor. I don't think she worked on any campaigns. I think she was just someone who happened to vote for Trump, from what I understand. and her house was not quite raided because they didn't have a warrant. They knocked on her door, and unfortunately, she let them in and tried to do a bunch of stuff. Thankfully, she was innocent of whatever ridiculous thing they were accusing her of, which apparently was being in D.C. on January the 6th. Because that itself is such a terrible crime. Lucky for her, she wasn't actually there, and I guess they didn't find anything else, at least yet, that we've seen that they're going to try and pin on her. But if the FBI comes knocking at your door, you got to tell them, hey, get a warrant or get out. Because the FBI surely wouldn't have been able to get a warrant to search this woman's home because they only had an anonymous tip that said, oh, she was in D.C. on January the 6th. And so they came knocking on her door, and what they were hoping was that she would be stupid just like she was there. Let them in, talk to them, try to talk her way out of it, and in so talk herself in to a conviction of something. They could just put anything on her, even if it was, even if she changed her story kind of in the middle of it, because they come at you in the middle of the night, they wake you up out of bed, they get you disoriented, and then they start asking you, they pepper you with questions, and if you contradict yourself once, that is the crime of quote-unquote lying to the FBI, and they put you in prison for that. Remember, that's what they did to old Mike Flynn, and I guess I have to be thankful to Mike Flynn because his case did teach me, and probably a lot of other people, a very important lesson about that, about how easy it is for the FBI to put you in prison, or to, convict you of something. I don't think, what's his name, Flynn, ever actually was imprisoned for that, but he certainly went through years of court battle, and if the FBI wants to, they can really mess you up if you are willing to speak to them. Now, if you make them get a warrant, that makes things a little harder. They can still probably, find ways around that if they really want to get you. But if you're not a big fish to fry, and they come knocking, putting up a little resistance will probably be enough for them to back off, because they got bigger fish to fry. There are people like Mike Lindell and Steve Bannon who they would much rather nail than, focusing too much energy on someone like you or this poor woman in New Jersey. So, unlike, the initial Russiagate stuff, early on, I was open to hearing some of it and saying, oh, well, let's see where this goes. Because when Trump came in, I thought, well, hey, he's this, New York City billionaire guy. Yeah, he's probably got some corrupt stuff in his background. Let's see if they dig up any dirt on him. And then, of course, we all know the story from there. It was total BS. None of it was true. It was all 100% lies. And you could see that long before the Mueller probe ever concluded. Unfortunately, there are still people to this day who somehow deny that. But I think the whole Russiagate fiasco woke up a lot of people and made them realize that the default position you have to be in is that when the deep state says stuff like this about people, you have to assume first and foremost that they're trying to deceive the public. That is the base case. I knew that was possible. I knew that, certainly the intelligence folks and the FBI, they'd done that crap in the past before. And, I was not a fan of the FBI to begin with. I didn't think that, even during the, before all this stuff, I didn't think that the FBI should exist. But even that was more of a principled ideological position. I didn't, really appreciate just how bad and manipulative they were. But now I, and a lot more people than there used to be, can look at this stuff and see it coming a mile away and say, okay, they're going after all these people around Trump who criticized, let's say, the way in which the 2020 election was carried out. And they're doing all this right before the midterm elections. What are the odds they're going to hold this stuff back until after the election? We are still in September. Next month is October. At this point, am expecting there to be the FBI to come out and say, okay, we've conducted this big investigation, and here now they're gonna lay out this big conspiracy that Republicans had to overthrow the federal government after 2020, and how the January 6th insurrection was the culmination of that. That was their big day. That was the beer hole putsch, which thankfully was staved off and defeated by the brave women of the, well, they probably would want to just recognize the women, so I guess that was that was a bit of a Freudian slip on my part, but the brave men and women, they probably would say reluctantly, of the Capitol Police and the FBI, together, federal police, the Stasi, were able to beat down the hordes of Trumpian clowns. And they would say once and for all that these people were, Confederate wannabes, and under, what is it, the 14th Amendment or whatever, they can never hold office. This is the direction that I see all this going. Although maybe they won't put January 6th in this plot, because the FBI already kind of a few months ago said, January 6th, that wasn't a conspiracy. That was all spontaneous. And I think listeners of this channel probably know, and I talked about at the time, why the FBI probably would be keen on not opening up the can of worms that is, the idea that there could be a conspiracy behind, that led to the orchestration of the whole January 6th upheaval. There are names of certain boomer feds who YouTube would probably not like me to mention. Names which inevitably would be brought up routinely during any discussion of a possible conspiracy behind the January 6th upheaval. And so maybe this whole, whatever they think that Mike Lindell and all of these other sort of high-level Trump guys are involved with, they probably will not actually tie that directly to January 6th. But maybe what they'll say is that their plot to overthrow the election whipped up all these supporters into a frenzy, and they delegitimized our system through disinformation, and how disinformation, they already think that's a crime. And so disinformers like Mike Lindell and probably, what's his name, Dinesh D'Souza, who made he made a documentary movie. I don't know if he's one of the people who've been rated yet, but all these folks with Trump as the ringleader, they did their best to overthrow the election. And so you got to make sure that this Tuesday, because they'll probably drop it, the week before in October, a week before the election, they'll say, this Tuesday, you got to vote for Democrats to save our democracy. Because look, we were this close. And, the Republicans will shut down the FBI's investigation into all this if you don't vote Democrat and make sure that the Republicans don't go in and gut the FBI. So, with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.